Today, we'll have a look at the Owl, how it unfolded at the weekend, as well as make predictions on how it's going to unfold this weekend, and hype yourselves up for the Marshall League kicking off, you guessed it, this weekend. Welcome to Pitch Out with myself, Sean Ryan Radio, the podcast dedicated to grassroots rugby across Canada. And today we are diving into what happened in the Owl, making predictions on the Owl, as well as the Marshall League. And we'll touch base with the results across Canada. If you're jumping into the action and you want to know more about how the leagues works, check out some of the previous episodes. We talked about the structure of the Owl, the structure of the Marshall, the other leagues across the country like Alberta and Nova Scotia, and get a better knowledge of how Canada works as a whole. This podcast is dedicated to all this sort of stuff, so if you like that sort of thing, go check it out because those episodes are really good and you get better insight into kind of who's favorites, who are the teams to be looking out for, and you'll learn neat facts along the way, as well as we doing it through each episode each week. Now, we're diving into the scores of the Owl, and I gotta say, we had some very interesting games. The first one is Guelph versus the Toronto Nomads. Guelph 81, the Toronto Nomads 0. Now, as some of you might know already, Guelph is the top team in the last 5 years. They've won the cup in the last 5 years 5 times. So that's just how impressive this is. They had an amazing winning streak until last year where they lost against Brantford Harlequins. I think it was a 3-year winning streak. So they've been unbelievable as a team. And this result doesn't shock me in terms of how many points they scored. This was Lucy Brown's first game managing the Toronto Nomads. It's a very uphill battle for her to take on that responsibility as your first game playing against a team of such high caliber, a team that feels untouchable at times. Was a big ask for her, and I don't think this is the game that was, it was just going to be, the result was going to be what it was going to be, so. If I'm Lucy Brown and if she's listening to the podcast, I would say, look, put that game behind you and look forward to the next one. Don't take it, don't take it to heart because that Guelph side is absolutely fantastic. They're just, as I said, they feel like an unstoppable team at times. Another fixture to look at the weekend from the Owl scores: Scarborough Aces 0, Bradford Harlequins 95. This is another uphill battle for the Aces. In this league, we're kind of nearly seeing that divide between the top 3 teams and the bottom 3 teams. And we saw a lot of it last year, but this year, and you never know how those seasons actually going to start off, how it's going to progress. But now we see it here with Bradford Harlequins scoring 95 points. They're still the same team they were last year. Still have the capabilities, still as strong as ever. Harlequins take the top of the table with this scoreline due to the fact that how many points they scored on the Aces. But as I said, very much an uphill battle for the Aces. They really had to have a lot of magic to compete with this side. And in the closest fixture of the game, a game that didn't have one team scoring 0 points, the Oshawa Vikings 24, the Aurora Barbarians 34. So a tighter battle in the Prem this week. This is the tightest one, 10 points between each other. Aurora take the win away from home. But the Oshawa Vikings are that kind of middle team, 4th place last year, but they're that team that kind of tries and edges on that 3rd position spot. It does challenge those upper teams a small bit. And a very decent performance from both sides, but just, on the day went towards the Aurora Barbarians. Now, as the table stands in the Prem for the Owl, Bradford Harlequins at first, Guelph in second, Aurora Barbarians in third, Oshawa Vikings in fourth, the Toronto Nomads in fifth, and Scarborough Aces in at sixth. Now, let's make some predictions for this upcoming matchups, starting with Bradford Harlequins versus the Oshawa Vikings. Bradford Harlequins are going to be favourites heading into this one. As you saw from last week's performance, absolutely dominant over the Aces. As I said, Oshawa Vikings are that team that kind of crawls up onto those top 3 teams. They do tackle it and cause some hassle, but will we see them overthrow Bradford Harlequins here? I don't think so, especially at home. I don't think so. I'm going with Bradford to win by 12 points. Now, this matchup is going to be an important matchup. It's the Toronto Nomads versus Scarborough Aces. Now, it's 5th versus 6th from last season. And this is probably the best chance for Lucy Brown to sell her squad and get a win to her name because these teams are quite tightly matched. When you look at the stats from last year, I think the only difference was a point or something like that in the score line or on the table markings. So it's going to be very competitive. These two teams are very much on that same level. I'm going to lean towards the Nomads. But to be honest, it's anybody's game. The Aces could take it home here. Very, very much tightly contested. So if there's a game and you're in Toronto and you want to see women's rugby, this is one of the games to look at because it's going to be quite a banger to get to. Now, last one, the Aurora Barbarians versus Guelph, third from last year and first from last year. Guelph is going to be favourites in the matchups. They've won the opening game so easily. We know that they're the same team we saw last year. Aurora will have to match that tempo, and they'll have to control the game earlier on if they want to win against this Guelph side. They have to come up with the magic. That is the ask for this Aurora side, and they certainly can do it. I do believe they can do it, but I think we might see this Guelph side just being able to change it up, and they just have this capability of being on a different level. So I'm going to go with Guelph to get the job done on the day. Now, if you love rugby in Ontario and in Canada and you want to be more involved, you got to check out my Instagram at Sean_Ryan_radio. We do polls, such as for the Marshall matchups, and we see what the public thinks. And we're actually going to talk a bit about the results that happened this week later on in the show. We showcase the results that happened across Canada on Saturday. I put up a place where you can insert the results, whether it's in the West Coast or the East Coast or wherever it is in between. We upload those score lines, and I give a small piece on what I think about those matchups. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more to get involved. We do some snippets from the show as well. So it's all here. So check it out in the link in the description. It'll get you right there to the action, as well as getting to other platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, oh, I'd rather, go for a run and listen to it on Spotify, the links are all in there for you. So it's very easy to access. Now, in the Owl Championship, we've had a lot of interesting results here. We'll start with the one that I got wrong, I predicted wrong, and that was London versus Burlington. I went with London to win. I thought it was going to be a tighter game, but it wasn't. London 15, Burlington 61. So I got this game wrong in my predictions. And we're seeing a different side of Burlington. Last year we saw them get relegated, had to battle in that relegation bracket, came back up. And now we're seeing a team that's putting 61 points, which is a bit outrageous. I thought it was going to be a bit closer. Didn't think it would be this much of a blowout in the opening game. There's probably maybe some undertone reasons of why this is happening. Could it be due to not having the right players for London, not having them not prepared, somebody injured, something like that, something happened before the week? Or was it Burlington planning during the winter months, starting in January, starting those training sessions? What was the reason? If you're a player from that team, do let me know in the comment section. But we're seeing a different team based on that result, and I'm all for it, all for it. Now, the other fixture that's happened over in the West was the Waterloo County versus Toronto Scottish, and it was a big win for Waterloo, 31 to the 21 Toronto Scottish. Waterloo winning by 31 to 21. Sorry. So big win for Waterloo. These are the two top teams in that West division we saw from last year. So this is a big plus for Waterloo. They will play the Toronto Scottish again later in the season at the Toronto Scottish. So could be a different kind of vibe and how it's all going to play out. But that's how it unfolded at the weekend. Now back to the East. We are going to be talking about Belleville Bulldogs versus the Ottawa Irish. Belleville Bulldogs 0, the Ottawa Irish 86. So this is the third game from the weekend where it's an absolute blowout. Irish are the definite favourites in this league. They won the league last year so comfortably. They are the team to be looking at to win it again this year. And this result solidifies that prediction. I think it's a very tough game for Belleville to start, and they'll be looking to put it behind them. It all depends on what their hopes and dreams are for this season. Is it to kind of reach second place in their division? Is it to maybe get to the finals? What is their goal? And they need to figure out a way to tackle this Ottawa Irish side if they want to achieve the trophy or achieve their better goals. They need to make sure that marking is a lot less if that's what they have in play. But yeah, a very tough one for Belleville. And look, I hope they come up with strategies and figure out how to defeat opposition as well as get better during the season. So Kingston Panthers and the Peterborough Pagans last fixture uh, of results. The Panthers 10, the Peterborough Pagans 20. So a lot closer result than expected. Kingston Panthers, as we know from last year, got relegated, had to deal with that relegation bracket, come back up. So we saw them last year, and we see them this year. A bit more tightly contested, I feel like. I feel like they have made progress. I feel like they are a small bit of a different team. Um, Peterborough Pagans, they are, I would consider, more than likely going to be finalists just based on how last year went for them as well. I think, a very good performance from the Kingston Panthers to get a result like that. Only shy of 3 points to make it to get that bonus point, but yeah, a decent result for the Panthers in my book. Now, as it stands in the West, we have Burlington Centaurs in at first, Waterloo County in second, the Toronto Scottish in third, and then London St. George in at fourth. In the East, Ottawa Irish are in first, Peterborough Pagans in second, Kingston Panthers in third, and Belleville Bulldogs in fourth. Now, for the weekend's predictions for the championship, we'll start with the Belleville Bulldogs versus the Kingston Panthers. Both sides will be looking for a win, as we saw from the weekend. None of them got that win. But I'm inclined to go with Kingston Panthers just based on the scoreline from last week. They look a bit stronger. I think they have the capabilities of winning away from home. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe this was just one hiccup for Belleville that they're going to learn a lot from and cause some chaos. We just don't know. But I'm going with Kingston Panthers to get the job done. Ottawa Irish versus the Peterborough Pagans. This is I believe this is a rivalry forming. They had 3 encounters last year with them playing in the finals as well, so playing each other twice. Playing each other twice and then playing in the finals, so 3 games. The Irish taking the 3 W's in all those fixtures. Peterborough Pagans' only loss was against the Ottawa Irish during that season, so will we see the tides change? That's the big question that comes into mind here. Like, will we see a different Peterborough side that has figured out how to defeat the Ottawa Irish at home? I think it's a big ask. I still think this Ottawa Irish side have just leaps and bounds ahead of the opposition, and I think they're going to win by 10. But if it's a closer game, I'm absolutely all for it. In at the West, we're going to look at the fixtures: Burlington Centaurs versus the Toronto Scottish. Burlington, a very strong start that we saw. I think we're seeing a very promising side. If they keep up with this momentum and score these massive points during these games, I think they're going to reach a lot of markers or like goals that they want to achieve this year very quickly. The Toronto Scottish will be eager to get a win under its belt. They lost against Waterloo. It's a team that I think has the capabilities of topping that group. So it's going to be interesting to see how they figure out how they kind of turn the clogs again and get a win over Burlington. But I'm going to go with Burlington. I'm going to say 9 points. I know it's a bit of an ask, but I think we are seeing a different team. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm going with my gut here, Burlington, to get the job done. London St. George versus Waterloo. London will be hoping to get another win under its belt, start the winning streak. London, or Waterloo, my apologies, will be hoping to add another win to its winning streak. If I've mistakenly said that wrong, I think I said Waterloo. London will be making the changes to get the W. They'll be trying to change up what they made mistakes last year because, that scoreline was a bit too massive for it to be, not make significant changes to change how this team operates. I'm going to go with Waterloo. I think they're going to win by 7 points. Could be more if London St. George don't make the necessary changes, whether it's strategy in terms of playing, whether it's coaching, whether it's, whatever it might be. If those changes aren't implemented, we might see another big blowout game. But we have to wait and see and hold on to faith. Now, make sure you comment down below in the comment section your picks, who you think is going to win these games. Have I completely gotten it wrong? Tell me down below because I want to hear your thoughts. As well as get better insight. If you have other information that I'm like not mentioning, or you have insider information in terms of like this player's out or this player has got an injury that's going to be out of the season and they're quite an important player, do let us know because people want to know the information. People want to get more involved in the season, want to get more information. The more information we have out there, the more stats we have out there, the more availability to these stats we have, we can make better predictions, we make better judgments, and we can get better knowledge about this league. So if you do have information, you can let me know down below, or you can DM me. You can always send me a DM saying, "Look, I don't want to put it publicly, but blah 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 blah. I don't want to be the source." Whatever you want to do because the more information we get out there, the better. As I said. Now, um, if you are following me on Instagram, as I mentioned earlier, I put up polls every week making those predictions on the Marshall results. And here's the results from this week's polling on who we think is going to win those games. So, Bradford Harlequins, 85% to win over London St. George. So, a massive percentage for the public for Bradford Harlequins to win against London St. George. And I'm not surprised by this result. We have had Bradford Harlequins win, several of the last decades McCormick Cups. They've just been the dominant force. You can't deny that. London St. George, last time they encountered, we talked about it in previous episode, that the game they had last time was a big loss against Bradford Harlequins. So as I explained in the previous episode, I think it's going to be a more competitive game. I think it's going to be, I think it's not going to be a massive blowout, but I think it's going to be quite tightly contested. But we'll have to wait and see. As I made my predictions, Bradford Harlequins to win that game. Waterloo County to win over the Toronto Scottish. 75% of you guys said Waterloo to win. And I think you're right because Waterloo had a fantastic season last year. They topped the group, they topped the table. Sorry, my apologies. They were dominant side and they proved that they were the top dogs. Toronto Scottish, I had a lot of them message me on Instagram saying this is Toronto Scottish's year. They're going to win the cup. This is our year. We're getting the cup. I need to see the results first. I think this opening game, as always, as I mentioned, we just don't know how it's going to unfold. Like we really don't. We can make a judgment, but we could be completely wrong. So I'm looking forward to seeing how competitive Toronto Scottish will be this year. I feel like they are going to be a better side than what they were last year, but you just don't know. You just don't know. The Crusaders versus the Centaurs, Burlington versus Oakville, as always. The Oakville Crusaders, 63% to win over the Burlington Centaurs. So big, big favor in terms of Oakville. I am for Oakville on this one due to the fact of home record as well as the last time these two teams played here, Oakville won, and the last time they played in Burlington won. So I feel like it's they pick up 5 points each off each other, that kind of way, or they get the win. On either end is how competitive this team. One of the biggest rivalries I think in the country, especially in this province of Ontario. It's definitely one of the big ones, just of how much history and geographical location there is. So it's definitely one to be watching if you're down in Oakville for that game. Bammy Beach, 60% of you think they're going to win over Aurora Barbarians. So this one is definitely could be up in the air. Are we going to see the same Bammy Beach that we saw last year? Because they had a poor opening few rounds. But I think they started to progress during the later end of the season. They started to gain their momentum, and they were quite competitive as we got to the playoff stage. But yeah, I would agree that I'm more inclined for them to get the W over Aurora. But we just have to wait and see how that results actually turns out. With Aurora having their new grounds, they got them late last year, getting a bit more culture involved and all that. I think we might see a change in the tide, and we'll have to wait and see to see how that unfolds. Now, in the championship, the results were a bit tighter in terms of the polling. We start with the Nomads versus the Ajax Wanderers. It was 51% for the Nomads, so very, very tightly contested. It was going back and forth when I was looking towards it during the week, or during the day of that 24-hour spell when we do the polls. So it was very neck and neck either way it could go. I've gone with the Nomads to get the job done. Patrick Molson is in charge. I think that guy has the capabilities of turning this team around from what happened last year for them. I think he's going to make some progress, but it is the opening fixture. This is definitely one that he could possibly win and put him in the right foot. But it's the same for Ajax, in the same sense that if they get this win, I think it puts them on the right foot. So I'll have to wait and see how how these two teams actually battle each other, how it's all going to unfold. But you know, it's either or. I think I'm gone with the Nomads. If you're thinking Ajax, I'm not going to be offended by it, but I think you just don't know. You just don't know how it's going to unfold for this one. Guelph Goats versus the Niagara Wasps. The public have gone with 56% for Guelph to take the win at that fixture. Very interesting one because there's a lot of history involved in this one because they played each other in the NRU. They've very well acquainted with each other in that sense. So it's going to be tightly contested. We've seen the women's for Guelph being absolutely so dominant. They just understand the game. You know they're untouchable as I said. But Niagara Wasps are the team that always bites me in the bum, the bottom, the ass, whatever you want to call it. They tend to get right there. I've gone with Niagara to win this one. I'm actually against the grain to get the job done against Guelph due to the fact that if I go against them, they'll definitely win, and if I go with them, they could win, they could not win. I don't know. This rivalry is always getting bigger, so I really don't know what way it's going to unfold. I feel like every time Niagara play any team, I don't know what way it's going to go. I just can't figure them out. But I've gone with Niagara to get the job done against Guelph. They better not disappoint me. That's all I ask. If you're a Guelph man, you're watching this, don't disappoint me. Please don't disappoint me. I just want to be on the same page as you guys. That's all I want. That's all I want. I just want to be on the same page. I want to, there's obviously this rivalry's growing, but maybe we don't need to be as rivals. Or maybe we do. I don't know. But I hope you guys win at the weekend. That's all I'll say. You can quote that. You can crop that out of the podcast and post it online. The Oshawa Vikings versus Markham Irish. Oshawa Vikings 56% to win based on the public's opinion. I've gone against that one as well. I've gone with the Markham Irish. I think it'll be interesting to see because the Oshawa Vikings have a new guy in charge. So will that change the tempo and the mindset of this team? But Markham Irish were just so fantastic last year. Like they were definitely, I rated them very highly as we got towards the end of the season. And there's a few individuals over in that Markham camp that are just very talented people. And I've gotten to know them throughout the year. So I've kind of swung my way towards Markham to get the job done. 56% say Oshawa Vikings. I think the big question is that a lot of people will have in their heads, and what I personally have in my head is this a different Oshawa side than what we saw last year against, the teams they had up in the Prem? Like, was it just a one-off year for them? Was it just like they lost players? I know they had the mixed abilities rugby during the summer as well. So there was one or two games where they were away in, I believe, Spain, if I'm not mistaken, or they were abroad playing games. That meant that there was a few individual players out for those games as well, for helping assist and whatnot for those things. So I'm I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if we're going to see a different side of what way it's going to unfold, what the itinerary is for them. But I've gone against the grain and going with Markham. I hope the Irish get the job done against the Vikings. We could see a different side. We could see a different side. We just don't know. Peterborough Pagans, I'm wearing them right now. Against Bytown Blues, 65% for Peterborough Pagans. As I said, this team, I said it to you last year. I said it on the podcast as well. This is a team I think has the capabilities of getting the top spot, making sure they get promotion to the Premiership. I think that's the aim of the game for them. I think that's the target they need to aim for. Maybe even get them a Corporate Cup. We know how the format is going to be for the postseason in terms of the playoffs and stuff like that. Every team in the Marshall Championship and the Premiership have the opportunity to gain that cup, and I think this is one of the teams that's going to definitely challenge that. So I have gone with the public on this one, 65% to win over Bytown. I'm not saying Bytown is an easy team to win against. I don't think that at all. I think they showed up later in the season. They did have one or two hurdles in the earlier matchups. I think a lot of it was just due to the fact that they weren't aware of their competition. They hadn't had games against these teams in either a very, very long time as a club. So a lot of these players have never played each other, or have played each other maybe on university level or something like that, but haven't played at that level. So there was a lot of kind of figuring out the pacing, a lot of traveling for Bytown. So there's a big question mark of how that all unfolded, but they did fantastic towards the end of the season. They really pushed themselves, progressed incredibly, and hats off to them. Hats off to them. But yeah, I'm going with Peter Repagas to get the job done, as I'm wearing them right now. I think they have the capabilities of being fantastic that year, and that's kind of where my gut is. But we just before we dive into a bit more, I do want to express that we just don't know what the opening games. Every time the opening games happen, we just don't know. Like I can make. I'm pretty solid with my predictions. I'm pretty happy with them. Pretty happy with it. I don't think I'm changing any of them. But the opening game is always up in the air. We don't know. New coaches are new involved. New players are in the squad. Sometimes clubs even change venues. Those different factors, the culture has changed at clubs. A lot of those different factors help change clubs, and all I'm basing my knowledge on are stats, figures, and what happened last year, as well as my general knowledge of how things have gone during the winter months. I know a lot of clubs have done like training sessions indoors and done tag and done X, Y, and Z. Some of the players even doing league to start the season to get themselves prepared for the season. So a lot of those different factors are going to help different teams, and could be big positives for clubs. It could be big negatives as well for certain things. So we just don't know, but we will. I am excited. I am excited to see how it all unfolds. Um, you know, I've gone with a few different predictions to the public on these, but we'll have to see how it unfolds the weekend. Um, yeah. So that's the end of the episode. That's generally how these episodes are going to go in the future, where we just talk about the results. I'll give you a bit more insight, and talk about previous results. I have a lot of the information for the Marshall, um, in terms of stats and figures and how it all progressed and last encounters and stuff like that. So we will dive into that a bit more next week, especially after next week's results. So make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, because you got to get up to date. That's where my predictions and my, um, where you'll find out the polling results is going to be. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you hit follow, subscribe. And if you're on Spotify, do leave 5 stars. Do leave 5 stars, because I want to be one of the biggest podcasts for rugby in Canada, and I want to make sure Spotify knows it. So 5 stars would be fantastic. Or leave a review. Yeah, just tell me what you think I should do better, because I'm always trying to progress. I'm always trying to make this grow, make this better, make Canadian rugby better, and say, look, we got a great structure here, and it needs to be showcased. So there you go. But yeah, as I said, follow, subscribe. Make sure you do that. You can check me out on Instagram at Sean_Ryan_radio. You can get access to polls, you get more information, get all the nitty-gritty details that you want to hear. If you want to help me cover Canadian rugby even more, you can check out my Ko-Fi. It's in the link in the bio. Every little bit helps run this podcast. We're doing like cameras, doing the lighting, doing laptop. There's a few changes I want to get done. I want to get a computer, custom built computer, so that like my processing unit can run a few different apps at the same time, so I can make better videos. So it makes it look neater, makes it look more professional, and all that. So just those little tweaks that I want to do, and that money is going towards that. But until then, I'm Sean Ryan Radio, the radio man, radio guy. You know me. And this has been Pitchside.